The BBC reports Donald Trump has threatened China with an additional tariff of 50% on goods imported to the U.S. if it does not withdraw a countermeasure as global markets tumbled for a third day. Speaking at the White House on Monday, U.S. President said that he was not considering a pause on new tariffs to allow for negotiations with other countries. We're not looking at that. We have many, many countries that are coming to negotiate deals with us, and they're going to be fair deals, he said. Trump reiterated his threat of 50% duties on Chinese goods if Beijing did not retract its counter-tariff plans by Tuesday. If imposed, U.S. companies bringing in certain goods from China could face a 104% tax. So, do you guys feel like there has been enough movement from the rest of the world to justify beginning to make deals? I've been hearing a lot of things on the news that it is time for Trump to call a win, say he's got a win, and start getting deals before the pain gets too much. What do you guys have sense on that?
Well, I think Trump is a master of getting the other guy to blink. I don't know him as well. I mean, look, I'm a foreigner, and I know from the Canadian point of view, he's put terror in the political class in Canada. By the way, I think that's boosted the fortunes of Canada's Liberal Party, which is not something I think Trump wants for the long term. But look, there's a volatility about him, and you can see the countries that want to mitigate that. Taiwan, Israel, a lot of countries are saying, we don't need to, we know how the story can end, let's just fix it right now. I don't know, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he knows what he's doing because it's pretty radical.
I take a pretty, a pretty strong opinion on the fact this is the only way to get everybody in the negotiating table. And he needed to do this in order to, make America a lot better than it was. You as a Canadian, and Ezra knows this firsthand, every industry in Canada is controlled by an oligopoly of a sort. You have the telcos, there's only a few of them. You have the banks, they'll make the argument, oh, the U.S. banks are there. You walk down the street, there's no retail U.S. banks. They're like Schedule 2 or Schedule B banks. They're not part of the big five that are out in Canada. But the Canadian banks, they're all over here. You see TD, you see BMO, you see Scotia, you see RBC. They're all in the United States. But the U.S. banks are not, if you're in the retail crowd in Canada, you're not going to be getting a debit card from any of those U.S. banks in Canada. And then you have the dairy industry, Saputo's, all over the United States. They're nowhere. You don't see any U.S. milk companies or cheese companies coming to Canada. I think Canadians don't see that. They don't understand that. And in order to drive everybody to the negotiating table, you have to do what Trump did. I think it's brilliant. I think it's the right move. I think if you're in the interest of America, that's the right move. You want to make a better deal with every single country out there because markets like Canada are closed to a very large extent, from telcos to media to banking. There's no healthcare system that's owned by the government. Even as small as dairy, well, not small, but even the dairy industry and the food industry is so regulated in Canada. U.S. companies aren't there, so this gives the opportunity for America to make better deals for the American people, and I think it brings a lot back home to America. It's good for America. It's not so good for the rest of the world, and not so good for the very rich.
I have a question then. So you said, do more countries need to come to the table before they start negotiating? Is that something he's looking to do all at once, or is it not something that they can handle one country at a time, one negotiation at a time?
From what I can gather, he's not looking to do things individually. He's looking to get a bunch of countries to the table. And actually, we've got a bit of audio and video from Scott Bassett, the Secretary of the Treasury. He was on Fox News, and we'll go ahead and play that now. Let me jump this thing up. And
Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June. And Japan is a very important military ally. They're a very important economic ally. And the U.S. has a lot of history with them. So I would expect that Japan's going to get priority just because they came forward very quickly, but it's going to be very busy. And if President Trump again, gave himself maximum negotiating leverage, and just when he achieved the maximum leverage, he's willing to start talking.
Yeah, and so apparently Netanyahu was at the White House today talking about the tariffs as well. I believe they've decided that they're going to go 0 for 0, but I don't get the sense that they're looking to do it piecemeal. I think that because of the U.S. relationship with Israel, they typically have a very close relationship. So I think because of that, they might have made an exception for Israel. They make exceptions for Israel all the time. So I don't think that that's representative of how the Trump administration wants to act more broadly.
And he believes with large-scale leverage right now that he has the ability to do this, which is why I think the media, at least the corporate media, is working so hard to put pressure on them by announcing the downturn in the stock market and all these things, because it's bad for globalist interests.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at I don't have it here, but if you look at the results or the day's numbers from most of the stock markets globally, they were mostly down by 5-10%, whereas the United States is like the only country that's flat. And I think that has a lot to do with the administration talking about a 90-day pause coming possibly. You know, the whole buy the news or, you know, buy the rumor, sell the news kind of thing is probably why they actually had the day that they did. But I don't get a sense that they're looking to do piecemeal. So, I mean, if they do have this many countries that are looking to have a conversation about it and actually ready to come to the table, do you guys think that now is that the time if they've got 70 countries, is a lot of,
it's like a third of the world.
Yeah, you know,
I think that's what Percent wants. He talks about having 3 categories of countries, right? In like the green bucket, the yellow bucket, and the red bucket. And the green bucket are the countries that will be favorable to. Mm-hmm. Red bucket would be something like China. So it seems like they're going towards that route to do one giant sweep, but it's going to be more pain, I think, till we get there.
Yeah. Do you think do you guys feel like that's going to be something that's going to happen quickly, or do you think that Trump has the wherewithal, or do you think that the Congress will act? Because technically, the president doesn't actually even have the authority to do this. This is the justification that he's using to actually have these tariffs or implement these tariffs is a little specious. Congress is who is supposed to make add tariffs if there are, and Congress is threatened to act. And I'm wondering, considering the influence that the people with money have on the government in the United States, the people that are hurting the most are the people that have stocks, and as opposed to Gen Z, who doesn't really have a lot of skin in this game.
It's okay, boomers. You're just gonna have to cut back on the avocado toast.
I feel like that's millennials more than anything. But
sorry, you're gonna have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
There you go. There you go.
It's interesting that the administration sounds like they're being very receptive to Japan. There's probably some non-economic reasons for that too. I mean, Japan is probably the biggest bulwark, along with India, to China. And I think one of the things Trump is trying to do is reorganize the world to make peace with Russia and then contain China. And obviously, Japan's going to be a key to that. I think of Canada, too, because believe it or not, the Canada-U.S. trade relationship is even bigger. I mean, you might not think of it that way, but it is.
Yeah.
And it's also a very free trade agreement. Trouble is, in Canada right now, there's an election campaign on. And so you're not having sober-minded negotiations on the other side. In fact, it's turning into a bit of a contest of which Canadian politician can be, I hate to say it, the most anti-American. And there's a deep strain of anti-Americanism in the Liberal Party to begin with. And this goes back to Pierre Trudeau, who was pretty anti-American. You remember he was hanging out with Fidel Castro and going to the Soviet Union, going to communist China. So I'm worried that right now, you've got this new prime minister in Canada. His name is Mark Carney. I call him like Trudeau 2.0, but he's smarter and harder working than Trudeau. And he's practically declaring war on America. It's shocking. I don't think it actually speaks for Canadians, and I don't want Americans to take Mark Carney too literally. I hope this passes, but there's an ugly battle going on right now.
Isn't Carney like a career banker too? Like that's his past?
Absolutely. In fact, he left Canada about a decade ago to go and be the governor of the Bank of England.
Right.
And he's got 3 passports. He hasn't been back in Canada in a decade, and he's sort of come back, and he became prime minister without an election.
Right. I remember seeing a Daily Show interview with him, and he billed himself as the outsider. And I looked him up, I'm like, this guy's a banker.
His money, his signature is literally on the money. It's not much of an outsider.
One of the things I find most interesting about Canada's response to everything to do with Trump is like it's instilled this weirdly nationalistic sense in like their celebrities and their politicians, which I didn't notice before. But Canada as a whole has always done a good job of looking out for Canada itself. Like if you look at the Canadian entertainment industry, they have quotas on how much music has to be played on a Canadian radio station that's by a Canadian artist. Same thing with their television. I honestly believe that Trump would love that, and he would actually love to do that in America because he has that same faith, that same love for America that they seem to want to instill in Canadians. So it seems almost hypocritical when they boast themselves as being hyper-nationalistic now in response to Trump, when I think that their general idea is something Trump would actually support just for Americans and not for Canadians.
Well, Chris talked a bit about some of the trade barriers. I mean, you can't get a mortgage in an American bank. You can't get a T-Mobile or you can't get a U.S. cell phone contract, which we need badly because in Canada we pay some of the highest, cell phone data rates in the world. We have huge protectionism for certain kinds of agriculture, dairy, poultry, eggs. And you might think, who cares? Well, that doubles or more the price of those things. It hurts poor Canadians the most. My hope is that some of the things that irritate Trump, that he's trying to negotiate away, are things Canada should get rid of anyways. I want more competition in the banking sector. I want more cell phone companies to bring down the rates. And I don't think that we should have double the price for food. If you want to talk about what helps working people, get the cost of food and fuel down. So I'm hoping that one of the takeaways, one of the end games here is that Canada removes and you know what? One thing that Trump talks about a lot, Canada has one of the lowest expenditures on military ranked by our GDP in all of NATO. You know, that balloon, it came over Canada before it went to the States. We didn't take it down. I don't know if we even could. I think Trump is right when we say Canada's been having a free ride. Now, it hurts Canadians to hear that. But Canada should do that for our own reasons. Forget about Trump. Canada should get more grown up about those things.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.